In this episode of Clock Repair Essentials, we're going to look at stoning pallets. By that I mean you will often find on clocks of reasonable age that the pallets, these two parts here, the leading and the trailing edge of pallets, will have slight dints worn into them, little grooves worn into them across the face here. Those marks are caused by the escape wheel touching the face of the pallet there. Thousands and thousands of times, very slowly. It's slowly wearing the face of the pallet away. Usually the trailing edge isn't too bad, but they can also have a tiny little mark. There's a very slight depression there, very hard to see, but we certainly have a more substantial mark on the leading face there. So today we're going to clean that up and return it to a nice smooth surface, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright, these are the tools we'll be using. We've got two of these. One's 600 mesh wet and dry grade sandpaper on a stick, and the other one is 1200 mesh wet and dry sandpaper on a stick. Now these sticks need to be level. You don't want any bumps on them anywhere around the place. They can be made from hardwood or softwood, it doesn't matter particularly. These are made from pine. I cut them initially, both of them, on a bandsaw. They were cut to about 1 inch square, if I remember. And then they were put over the router twice on each face to square them up, making sure that you use an engineer's square when you set all your tools up, as you should when you're working with wood and metal and various other materials. Don't use a carpenter's square, they're not accurate enough. They're alright for woodworking, not for setting up tools. So having been over the router, I then glued them up, covered the sticks in Titebond 2, and then very carefully rolled the 600 grit wet and dry paper on it. You can see the line there where it was cut and glued, and then pushed it down very carefully and rolled it over, held it on each side for a little while until the glue caught, and then put some weight on the top, and the outcome is a nice smooth surface. And these sticks are around about 3/4 of an inch wide. You need a relatively wide surface when you're doing this. You don't want something that's pretty narrow, otherwise you're going to cut another groove into the pallet. So it needs to be wide, wider than the pallet as such, so that you can get a nice clean run across the pallet. Alright, that's the first tools. The second one, I normally use my 2-inch bench vise that's had a lot of active service over the years. You can see by that 15 years worth of abuse on that little guy. But today I'll be using this vise here. It's got rubber jaws. That'll do a better job for what we're doing today, and it'll make it easier for me to show you what's happening on the camera. Also, we'll have an India stone. You've seen those before. Synthetic ruby Degusset stone, there for the final polishing process. We need a black Sharpie, and we'll see how we use that in a moment. And a straight edge, a metal rule, a 6-inch metal rule. Alright, first thing we do, we take our pallets and we insert the arbor into the vise, making sure that the pallet is up above the level of the rubber. Getting that tightened in. That's not tight enough yet. Lower it down a bit more. Yeah, that looks better. Not too deep. Up a tiny bit. Right, now having got it positioned, we now need to make sure that the face of the pallet is parallel to the top of the vise. And the easiest way to do that is to put a straight edge beside it, and you can see that that is pretty good. Alright, so we'll tighten that down a tiny bit more in the vise, and then we'll start off with the 600 grit wet and dry paper. Actually, first thing we'll do, we'll put a little line on the leading face with our Sharpie. We'll cover it in so that it's black. Take the shine off, it'll be easier to see. What we're going to do now is we're going to use our 600 mesh wet and dry stick, and we're going to very carefully, very slowly, not much pressure, run it across the face of the pallet a couple of times, and then stop and then look and see if we're removing that black line, and it's not quite, so I'll bring that up a tiny bit more and then we'll go again. That's looking better. Keeping the stick parallel to the face of the pallet. Also to your bench, you can line it up on that to make sure that it's running straight. And you can see there the face is starting to shine. That's where we had a black line with the Sharpie a little while ago. That's starting to look a bit shiny. So it means that we're working at the right angle as we run it across. A little bit of movement on the pallets here because the rubber jaws there allow it to move a little bit. Alright, well that's looking not too bad actually. Yeah, that's looking shiny. Alright, I'll run over that once or twice more. Same slow motion. Not very much pressure on it. I'll put some more light on it and see if we can see the shine on it. Yep, you can see the newly polished face on it there, nice and shiny. Right, now we'll repeat the process with our 1200 mesh stick. We're only going to need probably half a dozen strokes. Make sure that the stick is parallel to the face of the pallet, and we'll do half a dozen strokes. And that is looking alright. Drop a light on that again. You can see how much shinier that is, and that little dark line that was in the center has now disappeared almost, virtually gone. So what we'll do now, we'll now take our India stone and following the same pattern, getting the stone parallel to the face of the pallet, a little bit of pressure, we'll just run over the top of it half a dozen times. And you can see, even without the light on it, that face is starting to shine up now. I'll give it another couple of stripes. Alright, now our Degusset stone, the synthetic ruby one, same thing again, line it up parallel to the face and half a dozen stripes across the top. Five, and the last one. Right, we'll put some light on that again. You can see the shine, the light shining on that. Right, I'll take that out of the vise now, move the camera back, and I'll spin the pallet round and you'll be able to see the difference that has made. You can see the light shining off that face there now that was black before. And that line, the black line in the center, is gone. So what we'll do now, we'll put the pallets back into the vise. This time using the Degusset stone, I'm going to very carefully run the stone over the flat face of that pallet, just to remove any slight burr that might be there. A bit of light. Alright, yep, to remove any burr that we might have put on there. I'll take that out, move it back and have a look and see what we've done. That pallet looks pretty good. Now, for the trailing pallet, you'll see there's a little bit of discoloration there in the center, so we're going to remove that now. I've readjusted the vise so that we can see it properly, and I'll put the pallet in, the trailing pallet once again. We'll level it off to make sure that the face of the pallet is level. Alright, now nearly forgot to put the black mark on it so we can make sure that we're actually cleaning up the area we want to clean up. Alright, so once again, light, very light pressure. We'll do a couple of strokes across. That pallet needs to come up a little bit higher, it's touching the rubber inserts. Alright, that might be better, we'll try that. Parallel once again and running across. I'll hold the crutch, will make that a little bit more stable, I think, and very carefully continue running across. Got to come up a little bit more. That's better. I'll hold it with my hand. All right, back we go. Light pressure, making sure it's parallel to the face of the pallet, and run over it half a dozen times. Yeah, it's still a bit of a mark there. All right, we'll repeat that. 5, 6. Yes, that's got rid of the mark now. All right, over to our 1200 mesh stick. The same thing, parallel to the face again. Half a dozen strokes. You can see it getting nice and shiny as we're progressing. Yeah, that face is looking a lot better. All right, into your stone. Six stripes. Yeah, that mark's virtually gone now. And then our Degusset stone. Light pressure, half a dozen stripes, parallel to the face. Right, now we can have a look and see what we're up to. You can see the light shining on that all the way across. That is looking pretty good. So all I have to do now is remove any very slight burr that I might have put on that. So I'll use a Degusset stone and run directly across the face. And see what we've got. You can see the shiny faces there now. The little bit of dark there is actually the back part of the black marker we put on, so I'll just hold the pivots in my hand and move it slightly around just to remove that black line without touching or affecting the work that we've done. There we go, that's got rid of the black mark. And there's our pallets. The line that was there and the slightly lesser line that was there have now been removed. All right, and that's how you stone pallets. It normally only takes about that amount of time. It's not often that you have very deep grooves worn into a pallet face like so, but you do get them from time to time. And you've got to remember that you're removing metal from the face of the pallet and you're actually thinning it down at the same time, so you have to be very, very careful to remove a minimal amount of material, because a pallet face is going to get weaker the more metal you take off it. All right, and there it is. Those pallets are now ready to go back into our cuckoo clock, so we'll now complete putting the movement back together again.